I've lived in South Africa now for longer than I've lived anywhere else on planet Earth. I built a business when I was quite young, and it got quite big. And then the business almost cost me my marriage. And I had to make a decision, the business or the wife. Well, the wife's South African, and I sold the business and moved to South Africa. So I want to talk today to you all, though, about maybe what it means to be an African. I live in Hogsback in the Eastern Cape, up in the mountains, 1,800 meters above sea level. And every day I drive my little girl to school. She goes down to Alice, if anybody knows the Eastern Cape, and I drive down the Tumi Valley. And every day I see hundreds of African entrepreneurs. They're not what you think they look like. There's the lady selling millie on the side of the road. There's the guy who's busy washing all the taxis for the taxi drivers because they're too lazy to do it for themselves. There's Tembello who works for me, who's busy moving his cattle around first thing in the morning and last thing at night. I'm a firm believer that to be African is to be an entrepreneur. We have these disjointed versions of what entrepreneurs could be and should be. We think Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, and the list just goes on. But I want you to look around the room because you're here. You're here. I firmly believe that when Thabo Mbeki spoke in 2011 and he gave his famous I Am an African talk, remember that? And he went through the beautiful poem and finished off, Africa will prosper. And he defined what to be an African is. The bit he missed was, to be an African is to be an entrepreneur. There's more entrepreneurs in Africa than any other continent on planet Earth, and we just fail to recognize it because we think it's a corner office and it's a tie. But you've all got relatives who are entrepreneurs, right? They solve problems for people at a profit. Maybe that's out of necessity because they can't find a job. Maybe that's out of just the location they live in, where there just isn't jobs. They create the job for themselves. But I think all too often we try and look up when actually we should look down, or look to our left and look to our right. You know, the respect I have for the people who live down the valley from Hogsback is ginormous as I see their work ethic. I see what they do. And I just wish one day they could have the opportunity that many of you have got to come and actually learn to take that hustle that they're doing and turn it into something much bigger. And so that's what I want to play with this morning, is to be a South African. It's in the DNA. Let's not run away from it. Let's not chase all of these other things that we think are out there. The way to turn around the South African economy, in my opinion, is through entrepreneurship. I was saying to Prof earlier, just 20 minutes or so ago, if the government and the corporates were going to do it, we'd have an evidence base to suggest that they're doing it. And if you go and look at the evidence base, it ain't that good. If they were going to do it, they already would have done. There would be evidence to suggest that we're heading in a good direction, and the fact is we're not. But that's such a wonderful opportunity, because entrepreneurs find the problems and then they come up with solutions. The problem is the economy isn't going where we want it to. Great. That's the entrepreneurial opportunity. Let's turn it around. Let's become a nation of net exporting as opposed to net importing. Let's do that. And if you look in your palm of your hands right here, right now, every single one of you, regardless of what your job is, has the ability to do that. Sure, your venture might not end up being a Facebook size, but every small entrepreneurial venture feeds a food chain, right? Beyond just feeding families. And that food chain coming together Maybe there's a whole bunch of suppliers in this room who go and set up businesses that allow somebody to produce something that's proudly South African, and then we can stick it on these containers, send it to America and sell it in dollars. Wouldn't that be cool? So there's so many questions that I want to play with this morning. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. I've delivered this talk a whole bunch of times, and I kind of pressed delete in Canva and started again. So I'm not really too sure where it's going to go to. But some of the questions I want to wrestle with this morning with you is, can entrepreneurship be taught? Can it be developed? Right? If it can, how? And if you are an entrepreneur, how do you develop yourself? What is really important and what is just smoke and mirrors? And trust me, in this space of business, there is more smoke and mirrors than actual fact. So we're going to have a play with these questions, but if I was to take some advice from somebody, I kind of want to know who they are. So a little bit about me. There's some data on the screen here, but I love what I do. Almost 21 years ago to the month, I set up my first business. It was in the adventure sports world. Why? Because I was really good in the adventure sports world, and people said to me, can we pay you money to go and do that cool thing you do? And you take us and stop us dying. I thought, this is a great idea. It's a great idea. I get to do what I love, and you want to pay me money for it. Now, the truth of the matter is I completely stuffed it up. That's the complete and utter truth for the first few years. And then I was lucky enough to bump into a guy who was a customer of mine who said, you have no idea what you're doing, do you? And I was like, none. Sorry, none. He said, here's some ideas for you. And at that point in time, I was desperate. In my first business, the adventure sports world, if you haven't been to the UK, you know the weather sucks. Right, just as a starting point. It's mildly okay for the summer months for 36 minutes, and then the rest of the year is horrible and nobody wants to go in the outdoors. And so my first 2 winters, I spent laboring on a building site just to keep the business going. Evenings and weekends were spent trying to do marketing and sales badly. Daytimes, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., I carried bags of cement, I carried bricks, I dug holes in the pouring rain, day in, day out, just to go and put food on the table, pay the bills, carry my responsibilities. And that is a lot of entrepreneurs' journey, right? It's actually the thing that's often needed, right? Is to do the thing you need to do to put money in your bank account to give you the thing that allows you to go and do the thing you want to do. We've got these wonderful, glamorous ideas of entrepreneurship. I said, have you looked at the stories of the other big software firms around the country, around the world? You all know what those are, from PayPal to Microsoft to Amazon. I said, all of those stories have the same pattern. 18-hour working days, sleeping under your desk. Right? It all has the same pattern. We'd be crazy to think we can build a business and avoid the patterns of the successful. We might not like the idea of sleeping under our desk, and I'm not an advocate for it, to be honest. But the reality is, all of those big firms that we know have the same stories. And so you can know whether you're on the right track as an entrepreneur or not. Am I replicating the story? Question mark. Or do I just like the idea of entrepreneurship? Because it's really cool and trendy, right? We can all say we're an entrepreneur and look like an entrepreneur, but the difference between that and being an entrepreneur, that's a poles apart. So I built my business, I sold it, I tried retiring age 36. That sucks. Don't do that. If you build a big business, don't retire age 36. It's the world's most boring thing. And people started asking me for more and more and more and more and more advice. And here we are today. I'm blessed to see about 1,200 entrepreneurs a week around the world. This week, with people on YouTube, maybe a lot more. And so what I want to share with you today is what I find works to develop entrepreneurs. My evidence base for this is just over 50,000 entrepreneurs supported in the past 20 years. So I don't come from this from an academic background. I may even say some things that will ruffle a few feathers. I apologize if I do. I might kill a few sacred cows and goats and sheep and anything else. But what I do want to share with you is the truth. Right? I do want to share the truth because I think it's important. So let's go and just keep one sacred cow healthy. Can you teach and develop entrepreneurship? Empirically, yes, I've been doing it for 20 years. Right? So it isn't a question about this, it's in our DNA and we just kind of feel our way organically. We can teach and develop entrepreneurship. There's no doubt at all about that. There is, however, some challenges in that, especially for academic institutions. And I'm going to talk to those in a bit. It's very possible. It's just, and if you do lecture in entrepreneurship, you can, in a university setting, you can find yourself as the ugly duckling. The stuff that everybody else in academia wants to celebrate, we don't. We celebrate different stuff in entrepreneurship, and we should do. But that means obviously there's some friction on occasions. So here's a few things that I've found out over my 14 years or so in South Africa. 99% of ventures will turn over, entrepreneurial ventures will turn over less than R1 million. That's registered PTY limited companies in a year. That's not in the first year. That's like maybe in year 5. Right? We should know that because it's important. And here's the thing, is it doesn't mean to say you failed if that's your truth. It doesn't mean to say you failed. In fact, maybe as we develop as entrepreneurs, learning how to fail is maybe a really, really valuable lesson. You saw on the previous slide, I've had 6.5 successful businesses in my timeline. What I didn't pop up is the slide that says 37, which is the 37 abject failures that I've had in entrepreneurship. But none of them were failures. You know, knowing what not to do is as important as knowing what to do. We all have great ideas in our head. Going and testing them and crash testing them and just proving yourself right or wrong is really important. Right? Really, really, really important. What I've learned is that the entrepreneurial venture may look good on paper, but it's got to suit you as a human being. If you haven't played with a Myers-Briggs assessment of yourself online, go do it. Right? Go do it. If you're an introvert at the end of it, please don't go and have a career as like public speaking or something like that, because you'll find it really hard. But maybe something in a more data-driven, more introverted basis will work really, really well for you. Every venture that I've been successful at, and it says 6.5, and I'll tell you about the 0.5 in a second, has had a certain unique feeling to me that matches who I am as a human being. Google spreadsheets and Excel have led me to failure more times. If I look at those 37, probably 34 was because I built the business on a spreadsheet. I didn't build it on what was right for me as the entrepreneur. Because if you're going to sleep under your desk, you better really love what it is that you're doing when you're waking up. Right? You better adore it. For South Africa, the next bit of statistic I've got is a fraction of us build businesses that export more than R1 million a year. That's my evidence base. Fraction. And so if we're going to go and turn the ship, we've got to go and play with these last two numbers. Right? How do we help more ventures do more than 99% of ventures do more than R1 million in a year? Number one. And do it consistently. And secondly, how do we change that number that I can see in front just there? How do you change that? Because that's how you turn the ship around. That one metric in and of itself. A nation, if you think about your own bank balance, right? If you just swirl money around in your own bank balance, your bank balance doesn't get any bigger. And ultimately, then you go and spend money and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And a country that net imports has exactly that impact on its bank balance. You just reduce the bank balance lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. You can't tax your way out of it. It's impossible. Same bank balance. And so really what's needed is foreign currency coming in on what we sell. We're in such a wonderful position here in South Africa, a highly educated population. Right? Our logistics are some of the best on the continent. There's not as much red tape here as in the rest of the world. Some of you will go about that, but it's true. Right? Imagine living in the UK, building a business where the UK equivalent of SARS is in your bank account 24/7 watching every transaction. I've never yet found a founder who hasn't been swirling money around in their business bank account to make ends meet at the end of the month and duck this and dive that and claim this as a dodgy expense and so on and so forth just to pull it off. We're blessed by our lack of regulation and enforcement of regulation. It is the entrepreneurial opportunity. The same is true in America. We think it's the land of everything. The IRS, their version of SARS, is in your bank accounts 24/7 looking at it. You don't have a bandwidth to move in. Here we've got a bandwidth. So let's use it as an opportunity. One of the key questions I ask people when they say, oh, this, that, and the other, and they kind of have a, why has this happened to me, right? Why are the politicians corrupt? Why is the power not on? Why? And I'm like, stop! Change why for how. How has this happened for me? How is this a blessing? How is this a gift? How? If you make that one shift today in your world, you will change your world going forwards no matter what it is. Right? Why are my kids naughty? I've got 2 kids. Yes. Why are my kids naughty? How is my kids being naughty a gift to me as a parent? Some of you are parents at me, and the eye contact in here is like, that hurts your heads. But it works. So let's talk about turning this ship around. I want to go through my 3 secrets for entrepreneurial development today. I don't know if you can read that or not, but the first one is about the biggest difference that makes the difference. We're going to go play with that. We're also then going to go play with how to teach what matters in 5 years' time, not what mattered 10 years ago. Right? How to cover that. And then the elephant in the room, in the entrepreneurial room, that we all need to speak about more often. So let's go play, shall we? Now, I'm going to take some questions at the end. The mark of intelligence is the ability to ask articulate questions and learn from the answers. It's not in the knowledge you acquire. So I want you to come up with some great questions for me. Yes, I have a size 10 foot. I'm on my second marriage. I'm a Christian. You can ask me anything you like, right? But come up with some questions that will make a difference for your world, for you, towards the end. So the biggest difference that makes the difference is accepting this. The only problem that entrepreneurs face are people problems. They do not face any other problem. You might think you do. Oh, the technology doesn't work. Who coded it in the first place, and who's going to fix it? The technology not working is a people problem, right? Going forwards, every problem you face will be a people problem. While there are people doing business and people buying from businesses, everything is people problems. I don't have enough money. Well, you need more customers. They've got the money, right? I can't charge enough for my service. You haven't articulated value to the customer well enough to make them want to buy your service or your product. Everything is a people problem. And if you could just learn to understand people to a deeper level, and we're going to jump into it in a while, you will find that every problem starts to solve itself. And so let's start by understanding some people. Here's a few of my current clients. To the guys in the top left there, you might recognize Tabiso Kambule as a Jacaranda DJ. It's one of my clients. And Marcius Van up there in the top left, who's a TikTok influencer. Right? All of these folks are South Africans building businesses today, and they all have a series of things in common. They really want to break it. I don't mean break it high. They want to go, coffee table, interesting. I'm going to break it and see if I can make it better. Because that is the pursuit of entrepreneurship. The solutions to most problems are already present. So if that's true, we're going to have to go and break some current solutions to come up with something else and something new. We're going to have to come and take it apart and come up with our version of it and do so on and so forth. And what that requires is curiosity, creativity, resilience. And so do we really know who the entrepreneur needs to be if we're going to educate them? Because they don't fit the usual mold. They don't fit the usual mold, right? They will be the person, and I can guarantee this, the successful entrepreneur is the person who sits in a class and challenges the lecturer on everything they say. Because they don't want it to be true, because they want to create something better. Right? That challenges us as educators, because we're not used to that level of challenge. My degree's in education. I can imagine nothing worse than having a classroom of kids going, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, the book's wrong. And did you look about when it was written? I was like, no. And some smart ass goes to the front of the book and they open it up and it says, written in 1999, first published 2004. Do you know that's 20 years out of date? But in entrepreneurship, that's the mark of success. So often we frown at the thing we need to celebrate when we educate entrepreneurs. And the people who develop entrepreneurs, well, you as people matter more than what you teach. Right? The what we teach really isn't that relevant. Who we are as human beings is very, very relevant. Because ultimately, entrepreneurs do really well with follow me. The challenge for us full-time people who educate, and I'll put myself in that bucket as well. I run 4 other businesses on the side that have independent co-founders in addition to KingdomPreneur. Why? Because I've got to go and put into practice what it is I preach. I don't have to succeed at it, but I have to put it into practice. I have to do that, right? Why would you go to church, listen to the pastor, wander out of church, think, oh, that was good, and then you see him blind drunk in the pub 3 hours later, right? Snorting lines of cocaine. You're not going to go back the following Sunday and go, hey, I respect you. You can do it. Yeah, you're a godly man. You're not going to do it. And so the challenge is, how do we demonstrate our entrepreneurial knowledge in practice as educators so that we can deploy follow me? What's our side hustles? Maybe that's consulting or coaching in your spare time in the entrepreneurship field, in your holidays or whatever else. Maybe it's buying a couple of Airbnb properties. But follow me, it kind of doesn't matter what you teach them after that, right? Because people pick up on the energy of follow me. Come with me, we're going on a journey. I'm going to stuff it up with you as well. Let's go and see if this theory actually works in practice. And we all know that the difference between theory and practice may as well be the North and the South Pole on occasions, especially in business. I mean, hands up, who's had a business idea and you've tried to sell it to a bunch of people and people are like, Well, yeah, I've done it. We've all been there. And on paper, it looks wonderful. Somebody even told us it looked wonderful. And then we try and sell it, and people are like, I'm not giving you my cash for that. So follow me is the thing. Entrepreneurial credibility for educators is in what you do, not what you know. Right? The one thing I hold myself accountable is I never make a suggestion to a client unless I've done it myself and can do it myself, or if we conceptualize it together, I'm willing to put it into practice in one of my businesses. If it doesn't meet one of those three criteria, I won't do it. I won't suggest it. Entrepreneurs, we've said this, but they learn best from role models who are there now, right? They're doing it now. And then, of course, the elephant in the room, there is a need for professionals to develop entrepreneurship. But the core of entrepreneurship is creativity. And so my challenge for you, if you are an educator, is how am I going to square this circle for me? In neurolinguistic programming, we talk about congruence. Congruence is just like believability. How am I going to ensure that I'm congruent? Right? Now that's the academic versus university versus everything else clash, isn't it? It's the clash. In traditional education, but actually I'm going to change my thought on this really quickly. Doctors who teach medicine also do medicine as a doctor in a hospital at the same time. Right? So there is, I was about to say this hasn't been done, but there's a precedent for it. Nurses who teach nursing are active nurses at the same time. So there's already a precedent for it, so let's just go join them. Let's find our way. Have you ever looked in a university textbook? I mentioned it a second ago. Go look at the printed date or the written date. Flick back to the start. And you probably notice that it's a knowledge base that's quite a few years old. There's also another challenge. Every piece of information you probably could ever want to teach an entrepreneur is available free of charge in abundance on YouTube at world-class quality. Has anybody heard of Alex Hormozy? Please, somebody put a hand up if you... Oh, good. There's a person. Anybody else? Okay, if you haven't heard of Alex Hormozy, you need to hear of Alex Hormozy. I mean, that would be a thing. He's pushing out world-class business development information to get businesses, and his objective is help you make $10 million before you need to spend any money on business development. And he's going to give you everything for free. It's on YouTube. He's got books and PDFs that you can download for nothing, courses that you can do for nothing. And the best thing is, he sold his last business for $86 million, and everything he does is teaches you how he did it. Right? So we need to think about what's going to be relevant in 5 years' time, thinking about actually the traditional knowledge we teach doesn't have very much value in some respects. And if it does, we could easily be contradicted by a legitimate Alex Hormozy scale expert in the next 36 seconds. Right? So what is it that we should teach? What is it that matters in 10 years' time? What is it that comes out of the books? Now, in my opinion, there is only 6, maybe 7 entrepreneurial books that you should read. And if you actually read them and just execute on what's in each book, you won't need to read any more. Somebody can ask me about that later, but there is only 6 or 7. I'll leave you hanging, because somebody's like, Rob, what's your reading list? I can see it just back there. Just back there. What's your reading list? You can ask later. I'll keep you just there for a while. But 6 or 7 books. But really, what is it that needs to be learnt? Remember that figure I told you about? oh gosh, 12 days ago, maybe 13 days ago, I can't remember, 2 Fridays ago, 14 days ago, sat at my desk in my office in the Eastern Cape, meeting lined up with the CEO of a very large firm here in South Africa. It's the 6th meeting. A week before that, I've met with the chairman of the board of this business, and the chairman of the board's exact words were to me, "Can't wait to start working with you. You start in just a couple of weeks." I was like, fantastic. Go into the meeting with the CEO and the CFO 2 Fridays ago. 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And the CEO looks me in the face and says, "We've decided not to proceed with you. We're going to use another service provider." The net profit for that piece of work over the next 12 months was 9.6 million rand gone. And just a few minutes after that, I wandered into a coaching session with the CEO and had to go, "Hey, how's your week going? And what's your best hope for this time together today?" What we think matters is different to what actually matters in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster of emotions. How we develop people to manage that is the most important thing we can focus on. You can all imagine inside of yourself. Imagine I told you that Prof was going to give you 9.6 million rand. And you believed it because he's credible. And then you go sit down with somebody else who says, You've already mentally spent it in your head, right? Right? You've planned the resources, you could do this, you could do all, you've done all this. And then you sit down with a person who says, no. And then seconds after that, you've got to go and be chipper and chirpy and Mr. or Mrs. Entrepreneur again and go and solve problems for people and do marketing and do sales. And isn't the world great? And that's what we need to teach entrepreneurs to be able to do, because that's the reality of their world. It's not included on the business plan. It's not included on the Excel spreadsheet. But it is the difference that makes the difference. Right? It is what we need to think about. I love this from Mike Tyson. You know, we all heard this before probably, but everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Entrepreneurship is like boxing or the UFC. It is a full-blown, high-contact, competitive sport. And so maybe as we grow as entrepreneurs, there's more to learn from mixed martial arts than there is academia. Maybe. Because the emotional roller coaster you go on is very similar. And there's entrepreneurs in this room, and you know you've been there, right? That being said, it's a blessing. That being said, it's a blessing. Because while the roller coaster has the highs, it also has the lows, it also has the highs. Right? Has the highs of me taking my wife and kids to Seattle, the business paid. Right? It has the highs of having lunch with my wife every single day of the week, regardless. It has the highs of independence, of freedom, of being able to go and help a nation, employ people. The highs outweigh the lows, but the reality is it's kind of like going to Gold Reef City, getting on the roller coaster, undoing the big belt they put across you, putting your hands in the air and going, "Look, Mum, I'll be fine." And coming out the other end. You could imagine giving that a go, can't you? I can just see it in your eyes. "Look, Mum, no hands." So you might be curious about, where do I spend my time with entrepreneurs? What am I focusing on? Now, I don't have a curriculum, right? I treat every entrepreneur uniquely based upon their unique needs, right? So my starting point is them. Who are they? What I'm about to share with you in a second is the 5 things that by just a series of patterns, I spend all week, every week in. Do I do other bits and pieces? Yes. But these are the big 5, right? These are the 5 that make the difference for my clients. These are the 5 that allows the JobJack founders to go and find another 150 million rand for their software business in investment, right? These are the big 5 that allowed Marcius van Antwerp, the TikTok influencer who's a client of mine, go from 500,000 income a year to 72 million last year in 3 years, right? They are the difference maker. And so whether you're a student, whether you're an educator, it doesn't really matter, because you can take them and go and do it for yourself or do it for your students. And so I spend my time here. People. Spend most of my time helping the entrepreneur be an entrepreneur, but that's not the logic behind it. That's this bit. Right? How do I manage myself to get the best out of me to achieve what I want to achieve? How do I know when to stop? How do I know when to start? And then the rest of my time is helping entrepreneurs navigate 2 other groups of people. The internal people, suppliers, employees, so on and so forth. I'll touch on that in a second. But how to find them, retain them, work with them, motivate them, inspire them. How to be the entrepreneur in an ever-expanding business where the ability to just crash ahead gets less and less and less unless you backfill the business. But the one in the bottom right-hand corner, external people, that's your customers. A business is what without customers? It's a great idea, isn't it? It's nothing. And the one biggest hole in most entrepreneurship development and most entrepreneurship focus is customer acquisition. I see hundreds of business plans a year across my desk. Most business plans, if they've had an academic background, are above 50 pages. They really hurt my head. The ones I really like are 2, 3, or 4 pages. If your business plan has less than 60% dedicated to customer acquisition, your business cannot succeed. 60%. Right? Who are they? Why are they? What do they want? How are you going to find them? How are you going to find them consistently? What are you willing to do to go and find them consistently? Don't just write social media. And, right, your 1 video a day on TikTok is like throwing a pebble into the Atlantic Ocean and expecting to hit a whale. Right? How? It's got to be the focus. Because nothing else matters without it. Business is really simple, right? You solve a problem, have a product or a service that solves a problem. You market it, you sell it, you deliver on it, you make a profit. It's a very simple ecosystem. But all too often we get fascinated by the bits that don't matter. You can't do sales without marketing. Who do you sell to? Right? You can't do marketing unless you know what problem you solve for who, how, why, when, and are they actually willing to pay you for it, right? Because we make big assumptions on what people are willing to pay for. I work with a lot of financial advisors and they say, Rob, everybody needs what it is that we sell. I'm like, that's nice. Nobody wants what it is you sell. I've got one here, thanks. Nobody wants what it is you sell, right? Who wants to spend money on life insurance in this room? Put your hand up. Oh, look, it's gone quiet very quickly. Excuse me. And so just because people need what it is that you've got, if they don't want to buy it, they're not going to part with their cash. You've just made your marketing so much harder. You look at the global sales of Xanax versus sales for meditation. Both achieve the same ends. Xanax sales top over $1 billion globally, US per year, meditation doesn't globally in the coaching industry go above 40 million. Why? People want quick sleep results. Pop the pill, fall asleep, job done, stress finished, done. Meditation, lovely idea. Got to clear my mind, find time to sit still, dedicate half an hour a day to it, and maybe after 6 months I might get a good night's sleep. Right? Which one sells the most? It's obvious, isn't it? It's the first one. Right? We love the idea of meditation. We don't like the practicality of it. And so when you do your market research, your customers will go, yes, 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 I want to sleep better. And by the way, yeah, I'd buy a product that helps me sleep better. Yeah, I would. And then you go to them and go, cool, here's the product. And you need to put 45 minutes a day in your diary and listen to this funky music and burn joss sticks and this, that, and your partner will think you've gone barking mad. The kids and the dog will do this, that, and the other, and they go, I'll just take the pill. Right? And so you've got to be careful when you do your market research that you're actually solving a problem that people want to have solved in the way they want to have it solved. My business development journey, since I've niched into mostly Christian entrepreneurs, has exploded. It is the 0.5, by the way, because it's still quite new, but it's got the feeling of the other 6. It's exploded because I'm solving a problem that Christian entrepreneurs want to have solved. How to bring their faith first into their business and still grow their business without feeling guilt and navigating the love of money, the greed. Customers are falling over themselves to join KingdomPreneur because they want that. They understand that some business development strategies out there fly in the face of their values. And that makes them feel ugly, and that makes because I've solved the problem they want to have solved. Right? In the way they want to have it solved. So my 5 main focuses. Number 1 is all around resilience, bias parking, and mental gymnastics. Resilience, you heard about my level of resilience a little bit ago. Whew. But bias parking is, we all look at the world through our own eyes. So therefore we see everything through our own eyes, and therefore we judge everything through our own eyes, but we're not our customer. So we've got to go and take how we view the world and kind of kick it into touch and be able to go and view it through the customer's lens permanently. Because when you can do that, you can give them what they want. And then mental gymnastics. We're looking to dissect information and find differences at speed. Test, go again, test, go again, test, go again. And so we've got to be able to go and bend our mind to new places. Right? Elon Musk is going to take people to Mars. But nobody's ever been to Mars. He doesn't even know if it's possible, although he thinks it's possible. Can you imagine the mental gymnastics involved that he's doing? I'd encourage, and I often encourage clients to do this, is go and read a textbook on entrepreneurship and then prove it wrong. Go prove it wrong. You know they can do most of the time. And I love it because their mind's developing. I love it. What a wonderful opportunity in our institutions. Let's go and take proven text and get young entrepreneurs to go prove it wrong. Right? Go prove it wrong. Because that's where creativity comes from. That's where newness comes from. That's where the new coffee table comes from. Maybe we don't even need coffee tables. Maybe we need levitating cups. You ever thought about that? Oh. A levitating cup. Don't need coffee tables anymore. Next is creativity, input-focused, and experiential learning. So creativity is obvious, but it should be a massive focus. But you need to be creative because you need to come up with new solutions, blah, blah, yada, 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 yada. Input focus, though. Everybody's staring at the Excel spreadsheet and the business plan. Very few people can say, how am I going to make those numbers happen?
Business and wealth generation in business is really simple. People times value equals profit. Right? Most of our plans and Excel spreadsheets and everything else we build are after the equal sign. It's a bit like looking at your bank account every 20 minutes and going, hasn't got any better. Hasn't got any better. Still the same. In fact, actually, a debit order's gone off and now it looks even worse and I feel rubbish. And so we've got to get really, really good at driving the input side of things. How do you make 4? 2 plus 2. And then experiential learning is getting people to put things into practice and learn from them. Next focus, innovative people acquisition and retention. Right? If you want to come and work for me in my business, and you send me a cover letter, a resume, and a CV, and anything else like that, I guarantee you will not work in my business. Why? Because you don't fit the mold. And so we're often trying to go and solve entrepreneurial problems using big corporate strategies that don't serve big corporates well. Number one problem in South Africa today is finding suitably qualified and experienced employees to come into the business. In a country that's got, 30% official unemployment, 50% total unemployment, and their number one problem is they can't find the people. We can't take big business solutions and drop them into entrepreneurship world and go, it'll work, because it won't. So we've got to get innovative and creative about how we find people. There's no shortage of wonderful people in this country we can employ as entrepreneurs. No shortage. It's just we're lazy in finding them. We try and shove a round thing through a square hole, and then we get frustrated because it doesn't work. You know who really impresses me? The person who spams me on every single one of my social media posts, right? Who messages me, who finds me somewhere and says, hey, have you seen that person, right? Because they've shown entrepreneurship, they've shown willingness, they've shown creativity, they've shown all the hallmarks of the things that we most desperately need in our businesses. You know, for those of you who are building businesses as startups, your first employee is going to have to be a jack of all trades and master of none, right? You need the sort of person who you go, I know you don't know anything about web design or WordPress, but there's the login details, and I need this button here and that button there, and can you just like magic it for me, please, as you crash on as the entrepreneur, right? That's going to be your first employee. They're highly unlikely to be qualified for any of the things you've asked them to do. And it might even be your first 3 or 4 employees. I know you think this is your job, but a customer's coming in and all the salespeople are busy, so I know you think you do bookkeeping, but could you just go and talk to that customer over there, please? Shut, thank you. Right? So we've got to get innovative about how we find these people and then how we retain them. Right? We have the gift of social media. Most businesses use it appallingly, horribly. Oh, it just makes my skin crawl. But it's a gift. Now, I promised myself I wouldn't beat you over the head with a Bible for too long today, but I was tempted to. Oh, I'm joking. But if we go and look for those who are Christian, Mark 4:1, Jesus went out onto the water in a boat to preach to the masses from the boat, using the water as a magnifying effect to the masses on the shore, tens of thousands of people. You know, in my world, I say, be like Jesus. Well, what's Jesus do in business? What's the 2024 version of that? What would he do if he had my job? But if you go think about that, social media is the boat and the water. It's free. It goes to the masses. Right? We need to get innovative and clever with it. We need to work out how we add value. Alex Hormozy, who I mentioned, who only one of you, my friend here is the only person who's actually bumped into him. He says we need to give away what we think we should sell and then sell the execution. That hurts my head. Still to this day. Still to this day. And then the fourth of the fifth is all around execution and systematic processing. I've just come back from Dubai. We've just launched a business there. I've just supported a client rather to launch a business there. You know the speed that those folks are working at? It's terrifying. If we ever think we're fast, and I've had to have a quiet word with myself about this in the past couple of weeks, whatever we're taking in Joburg or Pretoria to get done in 2 weeks, they're doing it in 3 hours. If they say 12 p.m., they meet 11:59. It's incredible. It's faster than the Americans are doing. And that's... And so the speed of execution is going to be everything. Have you ever noticed that you have a great idea about something, and the longer it takes you to execute it, the more self-doubt creeps in, and you start questioning it and getting more theoretical and more whatever else about it. And then when you do it, you've lost that inertia, you've lost that momentum, you've lost that energy, and you never quite pull it off. And then there's other things that you do. You have a great idea and just go, boom, put it into practice. It just seems to go. It just seems to happen, right? The speed we work at helps our brain as entrepreneurs not second guess ourselves. Come up with all the reasons why it shouldn't work. You've all done that, right? I do that the whole time. So we need to go faster. And then for me, the last thing is faith. Why? We talk about self-belief and self-confidence and all these things the entire time. I've worked with Olympians. I've worked with top-level CEOs. I've done all right for myself. I'm pretty good at practicing my own preach. And I tell you now, my self-belief runs dry on occasions. My self-confidence runs dry on occasions. Right? I need, and most of my clients find this to be true, something bigger than them to lean into. Now, this can't come as a surprise to us. If you go and look at the Olympics and all the athletes who won medals who got interviewed, how many of them said thanks to him? Right? Massive percentage. You go and talk to top-level CEOs all over the world. Most of them are people of a faith. I'm not going to judge what faith, but when we have our downest days, we need something to lean into that's bigger than us. And we will have down days. We also need something on the up days to go and give thanks to. Right? It makes us feel safe. It's like a comfort blanket. And so I'd encourage you as you wander forward in your journeys to think about, how do I benchmark myself on those 5? What am I good at? What am I not good at? What's my area of improvement? Do I need to go faster? Or maybe, do I need to go slower? So here we are. I'm almost on time as well. I'm doing quite well for myself, considering I tore it all apart this morning. Let's have a chat around the elephant in the room. So what I want to do before I tell you what I think it is, what do you think the elephant in the South African entrepreneurial room is? What would you guess? Who's brave? It's not the government. It's not Eskom, before anybody says that. Corruption. Who said finance? Finance. It's the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is this. I need an investor. Right? I'm going to tell you now, you don't. And if you think you do, you need to go have a quiet word with yourself. Now, there's some caveats behind that. If you're doing 10 million rand a year or more profit, and you want to expand rapidly on a proven model, you need an investor if you can't self-finance it yourself. The percentage of South African businesses that get investment and succeed is horrifically worse than the people who get 6 chickens and a rooster and start laying eggs and selling the eggs, and then they get baby chickens, and then they have 12 chickens and 24 chickens, and they grow it in their aunts and uncles' backyards and fields and anything else, the piece of land. Those people succeed at a far higher ratio than people who get investment. And it is such a large percentage difference that I would feel unethical for me not to tell you this morning. We don't need investors. We're also very unlikely to get investors. That's a scary thing. And so we often make a trap for ourselves of I need, and we run around trying to go and solve the problem that can't be solved by solving it by getting the investor. What we need is a better plan. Right? My little boy's 3. Yes, I did start having kids very late in life. I am that old. He's 3. Many of you have seen kids crawl, stumble, walk, run. Unless you've done the crawling and stumbling bit, you're probably not even ready to go and talk to an investor yet. And they're probably going to ask you questions that you will have to lie to answer them satisfactorily. I don't want to disappoint anybody. It's just a reality. If I was to come to you and say, hey, can I borrow 10,000 rand? What would you want to know? It's not about the business plan. It's about the credibility of me giving you the 10,000 rand back. Right? And so we need to come up with better plans. I talk about it, I think this is the next slide, in this way. As I think about it in terms of the jockey, the horse, and the race course. Right? The race course, that's the country, that's the city, that's the place, the environment we're selling within, we're working within. The horse is the business idea. But neither of those work without a competent jockey on the back. Right? If somebody's going to invest in a business, they're not actually investing in the business, they're investing in the entrepreneur. Many of you have probably seen Shark Tank or one of those sorts of programs on TV. And the investor says, I'm not too sure about the business idea, but I want to back you as the entrepreneur. If I was to ask you for some money, you'd want to know I had some experience managing that level of money. It might not be my own, it might be somebody else's, but I've got some experience. I've got a track record at paying the money back to the level in which I'm promising somebody I'm going to pay it back to them. I've got a minimum viable product. So I've got 6 chickens and a rooster, laid some eggs, sold them on the street corner, made some money, got 12 more chickens, taken over the neighborhood. I love chickens, by the way, but taken over the neighborhood with chickens and chicken smell and whatever else. And now I'm selling 480 eggs a day, and I'm busy negotiating with a supermarket or anywhere. That entrepreneur is very investable. So I want to challenge you as you go forwards today. What's the bit of you that's holding you back with a problem that is actually not about the business idea or an investor or anything else? It's actually a problem of I haven't done the practical, dirty, hard work yet. Every single one of us can do the easy bit of creating a business plan to go and sell whatever it may well be. Milk tarts. We create the business plan, and then we're going to get a commercial kitchen, and we're going to produce them. We're going to sell them like that and whatever else. That's 10% of the whole. Most investors, and I am an investor, what we actually look at is something completely different. I can make the business plan myself in 36 seconds. Come to me with a terrible business plan. I can make it better in 32 seconds. Come to me with you. Right? Come to me with I dug holes on the building site to keep my business surviving. And I took all that money from the building site that I worked on and put it back into elements of my business and grew it. Right? Come to me with I've done the past 3 weeks sleeping underneath my desk building my piece of software. Right? I've got customers and contracts lined up. Come to the investor with you as the jockey, and you will get investment. But that probably involves doing all of the work we don't want to do. And I think if you're all honest with yourselves, and I'm honest with myself, everything that we want is on the other side of the work we don't want to do. Just think about your own circumstances for a second. It doesn't matter in life what it is you want to do, right? Lose weight? I need to lose weight at the moment. I put my suit jacket on earlier and I was like, oh. Hence, I'm not wearing it now, actually. But I don't want to eat less nice food or exercise more or any of those sorts of things. I don't want to do that. But the outcome I want is on the other side of the work I don't want to do. Right? And then I end up in a binary place. And as humans, we hate binary places because we like to try and think we're smart and can negotiate our way out of things. And the binary place is, be a fat boy, have your suit fit better, you choose. I remember when I did my master's, I hate writing stuff down. So the literature review part, where I got to read the literature, that was quite interesting. I quite enjoyed that. That was good. I love reading. But writing it down, and I got to the point of either you want to finish this thing or you don't. Right? There was the practical hard work of the hard work. So maybe now every single one of you could write 2 things down for yourself. What are the 2 things you're avoiding that you know are the difference between where you are now and where you want to be that you're putting off? You can do it in any aspect of your life. Parenting, entrepreneurship, weight loss, relationships, sorting your debt out. I don't know what it is for you. You've all come from different places. But I guarantee there's something. Maybe if you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to go and walk up and down the street of Rustenburg, knocking on the doors, going, hey, do you want? Having the door slammed in your face and being told to beep off more times than you think is nice. But the pattern for successful entrepreneurs remains the same. Marcius van Antwerp, right, lives just in East Pretoria here. When he first started working, he went up and down every street in Brits and every street in Rustenburg, crashing through doors and saying, hey, look what I've got. Do you want to buy it? It's part of the journey. None of us want to do that, right? All of us want to do 1 TikTok video a day and hope that the customers flood in. Wah, wah. So what is it for you? Write your 2 things down. It's my coachy bit. So I want to finish off, and I'm going to ask you some questions in a second by saying, you've all got it in your hands today to take this beautiful country that we live in and take the ship and turn it. It's going to happen in spite of big corporations and in spite of the government, and that means it's not going to be easy. But can you imagine if it's you and your generation through your entrepreneurial ventures that actually are being celebrated as the people who did it? We've got every resource we need. We aren't short of resources, intellect, or anything else. We just have to want to do it. So that's it from me. I want to encourage you to go do it. Have fun, be adventurous, and stay in touch if you ever find the chance.